Hello everybody and welcome back. In this episode, I'm going to be looking at how I helped my autistic toddler to do more playing, socializing and communicating. We know that toddlers with autism will speak less, interact less and play in ways that are different to neurotypical children. I have a daughter who is autistic and she is now a young adult. Today I'm going to be having a brief look at what our communication and social experiences were like with Akila when she was a toddler. I will also share with you the kinds of things that we did to help her to communicate, play more and interact socially. This is a series of 3 parts, and in the second part I will cover what we did in her pre-primary and elementary school years, and then in a third video I will look at her communication practices as a teen and a young adult. I noticed the following things about my child as a toddler that were different to her peers. She was a very busy child and she did not make as much eye contact as other children. She was happy. She would always look at me, laugh and smile. She was generally a very happy child. So she was not emotionally distant from us. I know that many people assume that all children with autism are emotionally remote, which was not the case with her. She mostly did not play with me or allow me to take turns with her when she had a toy or a teddy or any other favorite toy that she was playing with. She played mostly by herself. Playing was about, in her case, carrying a favorite toy around rather than actually playing with it in an imaginative way. And there was also a lot of anxiety if she lost a favorite toy. She seemed to need the toy rather than to want it. She didn't really use gestures or point to things, and she did not draw my attention to things in her surroundings. If she wanted something, she sometimes asked for it using a single word, but that did not happen often. She did not have conversations with me, whether with single words or short phrases, and her vocabulary was considerably smaller than other children of the same age. She didn't attempt simple social exchanges as other children do, by, for example, saying a word such as a car or plane and looking at you for a response. She was not really wanting to engage you and to seek a response from you. She did say a few words spontaneously, such as, for example, apple, if she saw an apple. But generally she was not communicating with anyone. In public places she would bolt and then we would have to run after her. She was mostly moving around and she hardly ever sat still. This busyness and lack of social engagement and communication was all connected. I realize that now. I would describe it as a kind of invisible bubble that she had around her, and it was not always easy to pierce that bubble. So at her second birthday, we struggled a lot at her party. She did not understand about the cake, the candles, the meaning of a birthday celebration, and she spent the day trying to get away from the party. She fussed and was anxious. My mother then pointed out on that day that she felt that something was wrong and that we should consult someone. So we then decided to consult a speech therapist in our area. And then the therapist, if I recall, didn't recommend any medical consultations, but we then decided that she would begin speech therapy with the same therapist once a week on a Saturday. So the speech therapist was very patient and she did everything that she could to make Akila comfortable. And everything she did with Akila was fun, and Akila never saw it as work or as something unpleasant. And she always looked forward to the therapy. And I might also like to mention that this was the time before diagnosis, before we knew that she was autistic. We just understood that she had a speech delay and we were trying to help her to overcome that. Our therapist did many different activities and played games with Akila. So at first glance, these activities and games seemed so simple and we didn't understand their importance. Later on, however, we realized that these kinds of activities and games were necessary to pierce that bubble around Akila, to stimulate joint attention and turn-taking, which is what happens before neurotypical children begin to communicate. So all these games and activities encouraged Akila to engage with the therapist socially by playing the games, by taking turns with her, and by encouraging Akila to communicate with the therapist during the game, the play, or the activity. And during these activities and games, she would begin to use words such as up, down, stop, go, or use the names of animals or make the sounds of animals. And so these few words that she began to speak may seem like small wins, but they were actually the first real foray into actual communication and social interaction by Akila. And both of these aspects do lie at the core of the autism disability. So when she went to speech therapy, I would go with, and I would sit in on the therapy, and I would watch and learn a lot. I learned by watching the therapist what kind of things to try, how to engage with my child socially, how to encourage her to communicate. So for me, attending the therapy and observing what was being done in the sessions became my opportunity for learning how to play with, talk to, and interact with my child outside of the routine things of that I did to care for her and to attend to her daily needs. At that time, of course, she did not play, talk, or interact like other children, and I was looking for guidance and help on how to be with her, and these sessions did help me a lot. So what I then did, at that time I was working. So in the evenings on weekdays, and then a couple of times on weekends, I would sit with Akila at a small table for about 30 minutes a day. So what I did was to mimic, in a way, the sessions that were happening with the speech therapist. And during my time with Akila, we would play the same or similar games to those which were done by the speech therapist, or I would find similar activities to do with her to encourage joint attention and communication. So you may wonder why the subject of communication is beginning and ending with talk of toys, games, and fun. And this is because my child was little at the time. She was between the ages of 3 and 5. And whatever the future may have held, we had to respect the fact that we were interacting with a child who needed to run, jump, play, and have fun, even if her development was different to that of her peers. Play and fun, which included a fair amount of cognitive activities at the same time, were the best ways to help her to learn to communicate and to interact with others. So there are really hundreds of different games and activities that can be used to stimulate interaction and communication. And these are merely examples of the kinds of things that we used. For example, we listened to recordings of sounds to encourage Akila to say certain words. For example, she would say cow in response to a moo sound, or dog in response to a woof sound. Then she built puzzles and she did matching activities. She would be asked or encouraged to name things in the puzzle or the matching activity. So, for example, she would say flower or book or bed if she was working with an activity that involves one of these items. In most activities, some kind of turn-taking would be incorporated. So if we were stacking cups or blocks, she would have a turn and then I would have a turn. She played with many different toys in ways that encouraged the use of words to describe the game or the situation. For example, she would say hop or jump for a toy frog that was being made to jump. Or she would say wind and go for a wind-up car. Or she would say choo-choo for the sound of a train. Or she would refer to the color of a block that she was using. So this would also obviously include labeling the toys that she was playing with, labeling it by saying car or saying baby or dog, if she was playing with a toy car, a doll, or a toy dog. And here are some pictures just to give you examples. Here is a very basic 6-piece puzzle and you would then look and see what your child can do. Some children begin with an inset puzzle rather than an interlocking puzzle, and then they move on to small puzzles, and some of them would go on to doing very big puzzles. Then there are stacking cups, which is a kind of cognitive activity, but which can also be used for counting and identification of colors. And here's a puzzle from creatives, things that go together. And you can see here this, the child would need to make connections between things in an environment. For instance, knowing that books go into a bag, or that flowers go into a vase. And if possible, she might also be able to say these words. And then some outdoor fun, such as, for example, blowing of bubbles. And when you blow a bubble, you could say blow. If you pop the bubble, you could say pop. And they could also be turn taking. And then here is a toy house with some furniture in it and some figurines, which could be used for a lot of free play, and also for her to be able to talk as she plays, as part of the activity. Then we would also read simple books to her where she could label things or fill in the last word in a sentence. For example, if you have a book where it says puppy plays with a, and then she would fill in the word ball, because she's looking at an illustration of a puppy playing with a ball. So it's an interactive activity where you're reading, but also where she is speaking. And here's another game, a fun game called Pop the Pirate, where you would take turns to insert the knives into the barrel, and then for the person who actually pops the pirate, then to say the word pop. And then also we would use inset puzzles, like for example this alphabet puzzle, and also number correspondence puzzles like the ladybird that you see here, for your child to begin to learn numbers. She enjoyed all these games and all these puzzles and all these outdoor activities, and she actually looked forward to my time with her. She would know when I was going to spend time with her, and she would enjoy herself. And so the time that she had with me, the first stages of us interacting in some way, just outside of her basic needs, were times that we really enjoyed together, just as much as she enjoyed later on going to preschool and being with other children. So I would scour shops looking for toys, games, puzzles that could be used to encourage Akila to speak, communicate, play, and to engage socially with her family. And doing these kinds of activities with your child is not so much about building cognitive skills. It's more about just using the game, the activity, the play as an opportunity for interaction, so that you can engage. It's sort of a tool, something that you can use to engage socially and to communicate with her, until such time as she's able to develop some communication skills, and you can do it in a less structured way. A speech therapist online by the name of Laura Cram said, on her website, "Nothing works better than using a toy to help with your child's speech development. If you ask any speech language pathologist, they will recommend that the best method is to play with your child. And when it comes to play, toys are going to be a helpful tool to help and train up your baby's speech and language skills. There are a wide range of toys to choose from, and many are cheaply available. Cars, animals, dolls, figurines representing members of a family, toy houses with tables, chairs, beds, cupboards, and other furniture, tea sets with crockery and cutlery, dinosaurs, nesting cups, wooden blocks for building and stacking, Lego, and toys that encourage movement such as balls, bats, and be attentive to outdoor activities and playing in the garden and just being outside. Children need a lot of physical activity, fresh air, and outdoor activities as much as they need indoor structured activities. And then, of course, any toys that your child shows an interest in. All toys must of course be safe and should not present as a choking hazard or any other kind of hazard. And they should be durable, and if you find that something is broken, you should dispose of it. Keep your child thinking, learning, physically active, enjoying themselves, playing, engaging with you and other family members, being present in the moment, and doing as many things comparatively as his peers would be doing. I don't mean that it's a competition. It's just that, as I mentioned, I saw it as a bubble, and I'm not among those people who believe that you need to, that you must at all times completely respect the space of an autistic person and not attempt, to go into their world or for them to go into yours. Because ultimately, as parents, we want our children to succeed. We want them to survive. We want them to be happy. And part of this involves actually, getting them to enter our world and us entering their world. And so for the two worlds to then eventually merge with one another. Remember, the toy that my child likes will not necessarily be liked by yours. Observe your child and use your knowledge of him, your instincts of him, to work out what games and toys he will prefer. You don't have to spend a fortune on games and toys. You can spend cheaply and wisely and with careful regard to the safety of the toy. Remember also that there are many ways to play with your child that do not involve any toys or props. Social interaction, back and forth play, turn taking, having fun together are important for developing communication skills. It's not about the toy, it is about the interaction and the communication. Please refer to my video on floor time for ideas on getting interactions going in simple and fun ways that do not involve table activities. For examples of simple games that require no toys or props are, for example, peekaboo, hide and seek, chasing, tickling and hugging, running and crashing into a tower of pillars, and the list goes on and on. And the internet is a great resource for finding examples of types of games that you can play that involve interaction and that may not necessarily involve any toy or prop.
Hi, my name is Akila, and when I was little, I remember speech therapy with Sarah, and it was fun. I remember the game when we used a hammer and I shouted bang bang. I enjoyed that a lot. I remember doing puzzles with my mother at home and playing Wolfie Wolfie outside in the garden and reading books with mom that had lots of cool pictures. I had a baby doll that I took with me everywhere, but I don't remember a lot. I have forgotten because I was little that time. In this picture, I'm holding my Baba and watching Wheels on the Bus. I liked to watch Wheels on the Bus, but also Teletubbies when I was little.
By the end of Akila's toddler years and following the continued speech therapy, when I look back on it, I see that she could do a few things. She could label many things in books and in the real world. So in other words, she developed a good vocabulary in respect of many physical items in her environment. She could say many nursery rhymes. In fact, she knew almost all of them. She could listen to a simple book that you read while looking at its pictures. She could fill in words previously learned at the end of a sentence. For example, a horse lives in a, and she would say stable. At times, she could ask for what she wanted by saying the word or by using a simple phrase such as I want banana. She could answer simple questions such as what is this, what is your name, and what do you want. She could repeat words spoken by another person. This is known as echolalia. And this ability, although not done by neurotypicals out of context, this ability was used later when she was a little older to teach her many new words. She did not engage in conversation with anyone still at this time, and this was because she really didn't understand what a conversation was or what its purpose was. As a whole, conversation remained a mystery to her in many ways, and she would only begin to understand it much later. You might notice that at this time, the early years, I didn't know a lot. Um, I did the best I could. I tried to gain as much knowledge as I could from other people and from books. And I think that everything you learn and understand can help you and your child on your journey. Um, Please look out for part 2 in this series, which will be published next week and is titled Piercing the Bubble of Autistics in Pre-Primary and Primary or Elementary School. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you would like more useful and practical information on raising a child with autism. Thank you and goodbye.